Hey, I'm Fresh Vintage. We're replacing the leaky radiator in our 98 Accord. We got our tools laid out over here. We'll show you in a minute. We're going to show you how to DIY every step of the way and save. Let's get started right now. So we wanted to show you some of the tools that you're going to need for the job here. And we have them all laid out. Always want to have a nice tray. This is a magnetic tray. You don't necessarily need that, but this is a 10 millimeter. That's why we have the sockets here. We happen to have a Hercules cordless ratchet, and there's a 10 millimeter impact on it. We have that, so we're going to use it as well. And then a couple different slip joints. I mean, you probably could get away with just one of these, but it was nice having the 3 different ones so you can get to different angles and stuff. A flat blade screwdriver. We ended up cutting one of the hoses that you'll see here in a little bit later in the video, but something, cutting device, a knife, or in this case we have some garden shears. And then, of course, a good flashlight so we can see down into the bottom part of the engine bay. All right, let's dive right into it, shall we? So now that we looked at the tools, I got the flashlight on, and you can see the actual leak here. And going along, right along the edge here, and on both sides, and you can actually see it. This is like your #1 telltale sign that you're probably leaking antifreeze. Another dead giveaway, so to speak, is the bottle here is completely empty. If you're consuming or losing antifreeze, you're definitely going to have an empty bottle. This drains before the radiator starts draining. And also, we were seeing puffs of white smoke coming out of the engine bay at certain times. We only mention that because that's the antifreeze hitting the fans and puffing, like turning into smoke. But I say all that to say we're just going to replace all of this. We're going to replace the radiator, obviously, but we have the upper radiator hose and we have the lower radiator hose. Getting started here, we want to drain this out, and the car is cool, so it's good to know that the car is cool. Don't do this while it's hot. You're going to end up in the emergency room with 2nd-degree burns or something, but this thing is nice and cold, so I'm going to slide the pan underneath, and our drain plug, our drain valve, I should say, is right down here. Pretty sure I'm going to need pliers. I might be He-Man enough, which I doubt. Oh, look at that. Wow. We did not stage that at all, folks, I promise. Let me switch hands so you can see that better, but there we go. So we'll let that drain out. Oops, there we go. And we'll let this drain out overnight, and we'll pick back up on it in the morning here. So real quick here, definitely take your cap off at this point and let it drain out. As soon as I did that, I immediately heard it start glugging a lot faster underneath here, but we're going to let the gravity do the rest and push the actual antifreeze down through the radiator out the drain valve. So I know we said we'll be back in the morning, but the weather forecast is colder tomorrow morning than it is right now, and it's pretty cold right now. So we're going to take a few more things off tonight while this is finishing draining, and then we'll pick up on this in the morning. But getting started here, we're going to go for the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, and we're going to just grab our slip joint pliers here and just get this loose. Takes a little bit of patience just to get it over the end here. And from here, now there's probably going to be some antifreeze that comes out of here, or not. We're just going to do this. A little bit came out of there, but not really much at all. So I'm going to grab this right here. Let me slip these back out. There we go. And do the same thing. I'm actually going to slip them back in. There we go. And if you've never dealt with hoses like this before, sometimes you hit, like this one's twisting very easy, but sometimes they get like heat welded almost, which sounds silly, but they get stuck on there. We really got to just rotate them like this, and then they'll come right off. And I'm really glad we're changing them, because look how cruddy that is there. That's really cruddy. This is pretty gunky, so it's good that we're doing this. But let me pitch this. I'll be right back. So the next thing we're going to tackle is the actual bolts holding the top half of the radiator fans on, or the shrouds, I should say, for the fans. These are 10 millimeter bolts, and I'm just going to crack these loose. And we could do this with the ratchets, but we have a Hercules cordless ratchet, so we're going to grab that and make short work of getting these out of here. If you've never seen one of these before, definitely check out our video we did on this and a couple other cordless ratchets on Fresh Vintage Garage, or other YouTube channel. Scan tools, shop equipment, and hand tools like this, we do a bunch of videos and reviews on them. But in this case, we have a Hercules unit here. Really solid unit, and makes short work of getting these bolts out of here. There we go. And you can see that the shrouds themselves are loose now. And I'm not going to try to pull these out, but I just want to see that one's still in there. There's a bolt at the bottom. And that one, I thought that there were 2 pegs. So that one feels like it's ready to come out. Real quick, we have this is our Mac tools, but get yourself a magnetic tray so your bolts don't go flying everywhere and then you spend 20 minutes looking for them. We'll get this hose out of the way here. There we go. Just tuck this back here. And as you can see, the shrouds are loose like we were just looking at. I don't think I'm going to need this for this one. In theory, I should be able to do this. There you go. There's that. And this one here is still connected to the wiring right here. So I'm going to disconnect this. There's that. And over here, let me grab the flashlight and show you. In here, you kind of have to come down this side, but there's one more over here. So just to show you some of the reality here, this connector right here, this plastic piece, was on that crazy rusted piece right down here. And you wouldn't think that plastic and metal would be stuck together that bad, but we put some PB Blaster on that, and we spent a good 10 minutes just pulling on it with the pliers. I don't have them here in front of me, but it took some work to get that apart, just to get it up here so that we can pull this apart. Now, in theory, what I should be able to do is disconnect right here. Forgive me, I don't want to pull on that too hard and rip the wire off the air compressor, but I should be able to push here and then just get this to come apart. But given we had that much trouble, we might have to get this to, there we go. So that's what you're trying to do. Honestly, we just spent about 10 minutes getting it off of that post and getting to that point. So, but now that that's disconnected, let me show you. We have the fans disconnected here. And one of the other things you're going to want to do is this, you know, given how old the plastic is here, we may break 1 or 2 of these, but this wiring needs to come off of the shroud so that we can get the radiator out of here. And let me pop these off of here, and I'll use the flat blade screwdriver. I'll do a few of these and show you what that looks like here. Let me just turn the flashlight off. I'm going to try to be careful with these, but there might be a chance that I break 1 or 2 of them here. I'm just going to kind of try not to break this when I pull on it. And I just broke. Hope I didn't break the wire. Now the wire's okay, but I broke that, so that's exactly what I was talking about. And I'm going to be extra careful with this one to try not to break this one. I don't think I can get to that from the back side here. Actually, I can. If you take a look here, you can see that's why it was so resistant on coming apart. There's that one. So that one we can reuse. And then over here, they put these things in the funnest places. It's right here by the overflow bottle. So you have to take your time and get that one out of there. But we'll work on popping that one out, and we'll get this wiring laid out over here so it's not in the way. Okay, so we wanted to show you real quick. We did get the wiring here. This is loose from the shroud. And this fan, call it the passenger side fan, should do this and pull right out. And there's pegs. You can see there's plastic pegs on this one. So that one's out. I'm just going to set it over here. And this one, the driver's side, is a different story. And I say that because it's kind of hard to see. But if you look all the way down here, you can see that rusted, what's left of a bolt there. And I'm going to try my best. I hope this 10mm fits on that. I'm going to break that loose. And this is where you start seeing all the stuff you're going to hit and get in the way, so to speak. But I don't know about this one. We're going to find out real quick here. It's going to break or it's going to come out. Okay, we'll finish getting that out. We'll be right back. So it's the next day, and we have our trusty slip joint pliers here. What we're going to do to start off with is we're going to actually disconnect the rubber hose from the metal fitting. I was going to disconnect these, but it's far easier to disconnect this actual clamp and then pull the rubber line off of here while this is like hard fast and the fitting is solid. So I'm going to disconnect this one, and then it's kind of hard to see, but the other one is right here. And I can almost guarantee we're going to have more of a challenge with this one because this guy here is really easy to get to. But I'm going to start here and disconnect this, and we'll do that right now. So you got to love when car manufacturers, they put two 10mm bolts and brackets to hold your transmission cooling line on, but they don't put any on the bottom of the passenger side fan. So we're going to loosen these up and then actually fully disconnect the hose from the transmission fitting. So two more things we have to do before the radiator actually comes out. Down here you'll see the lower radiator hose and the clamp. We're going to pull that off, and then there are two 10mm bolts, and I'm pretty sure this thing will come right out. So we're going to do that, and next thing you should see is the radiator out of the car. So a new radiator. Big shout out to our friends at Everride for ordering this for us, and we'll put their link on their website on the screen here. You can check them out. They're based out of Roanoke, Virginia, but they have your next radiator in stock. And interesting fact, they made 1 million of these 98 Accords, but there's 2 different variations of this radiator, so make sure you definitely double check before you buy, and we'll put the link to this exact radiator in the description of the video you're watching. Looking at this radiator, we're just going to compare it to make sure it lines up here. And it's all the little usual stuff, like making sure your 10mm bolt holes are right, making sure this is bent properly, making sure this is bent properly, making sure this is in here. And something that you don't want to forget, make sure you take the little cushiony pieces off and put them on the new radiator. And to specifically call out these two 10mm, you can see we got to the point where we said heck with it. This hose and this clamp super rusty, and this was not having it, so we just basically cut the hose to get this to come out. We have a new hose, we have new clamps, so that's not an issue. We did want to mention these two are giving us a real bear of a time, and you can see they're turning, but the metal pieces in here are actually turning in the plastic, and I went as far as trying to do this, and you can see the plastic flexing. So we kind of said heck with it. We got to the point where this is the old radiator, and we're mid-process of breaking this free. So in theory, that one's loose, and that'll let us get an actual wrench on here and get these apart, because you need you get new ones, you get new squares, like actual nuts, so to speak, but the 10mm bolts, you need to reuse these. So we're going to get this apart, and then we'll show you the radiator actually going into the car. So before we put the new radiator back in, we want to get this lower radiator hose out of the way. And you already know we cut this end of it, but there's a few things here you have to contend with. This one isn't that big of a deal. There's an actual bracket holding the radiator hose, so you want to push that through this way. And then back here is where there's a side note, this is where your thermostat's at, and your radiator hose and the clamp is right here. So I'm going to disconnect what I'm assuming is the temp sensor wiring. Just going to pull that off of here just to give it a little bit more freedom. There we go. Get that out of the way, and then I have my straight slip joint pliers. I'm just going to do this. Wiggle that off of there. There we go. And this may be a little stuck on the engine, but I'm going to twist and pull on this. There we go. That's coming off very nicely. And we'll disconnect this, get it out of here. And that actually is coming out pretty easy. Don't rip your vacuum line here. There we go. So from here, we're going to just reverse everything. We'll grab the hose, put it in there, and then drop the radiator in and bolt it down. So wanted to point out that we're pretty sure, I'd say 99% confident, that the old radiator was leaking from the front, and it was running down on the condenser here under the belly of the car, which is why we couldn't see it forever. But the good news is that ends right now, because we're going to drop this radiator in right now. Get these cranked down here. I'll dispense with the usual torque spec is fill in the blank, but this will do 35 foot-pounds. So really nice. This thing has variable speed. You can go slow or crank it up. Pretty cool to see. If you don't own one of these, you can actually hit up any local Harbor Freight store. They have these in stock. Pretty nice little tool to have. It's solid. So from here, we're just going to start reassembling everything, and we'll pop in once in a while and show you the progress that we're making, putting everything back together. So quick recap here. We have the radiator in. We have the transmission lines hooked up, and just as some like cleanup side note here, make sure you click this back into place. And there's a little connection here. Let me actually do this. There we go. There's a connection here. You want to push this down a little bit. Make this connection here. And if you're asking if they fit that tight, yes, they do fit that tight. We'll move this one back. There we go. So we have our lower radiator hose and clamp there. Coming up that radiator hose, we have it hooked into this little hoop here where this vacuum line's at, and then back here we have the back end of this where the thermostat's at, and the clamp is all set. So this is all set. A few things we have to do is actually install this, so we can plug this in right now. There's that end. And let me grab the pliers here for this. Move that back a little bit. And from here, we're going to grab the fans and put the fans in one by one. And then we'll run the wiring for the fans. We have the driver's side radiator fan here, and this has an actual slot. We already installed the bolt down at the bottom here, so this should slide down onto that bolt. You just got to line it up. There we go, just like that. And then from here, these guys should line up with no problem. There's that one. And let me grab our 10 mil and we'll crank these down. There we go. And that is tight. Let me grab the passenger one. We'll install that next. So the passenger one has the two pegs. It doesn't actually have any bolts. It just has two bolts on the top here. So I will slide this down past the actual hose here. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just take this back off here real quick. Okay, so round two. Now that we have the hose out of the way, and I'm genuinely shocked that that dropped in there first time like that. That's perfect. So we'll put our hose back on. There we go. And if you're ever using those clamps, these are designed to hold like this, and then you put your screwdriver in here and they should pop. Sometimes these things need pushed in a little tiny bit. We found that on the other radiator fan. The holes weren't lining up perfectly. Here we go. tight. That's tight. We have our hose back in place. We have our clamp on. Both of our fans are tight. And from here, we just want to run our wiring. Don't forget about this guy over here. This clicks into the radiator. And what I just clicked into the radiator was this thing, but it's down here in the corner. So we'll run this underneath of the radiator here. This one clicks right here. And then this guy, we actually broke it, unfortunately, so you can put that in there. We may end up replacing that, but from here, just plug in your wiring for your fans. Just that one. There's that one. Remember, this one was a little bit of a challenge, but there's this. And then this part, it's kind of hard to see over here, but we just have to hook it back on this little hook on the edge of the radiator fan shroud. One other quick little thing, we're going to install the overflow bottle tube here, hose. And from here, we're going to fill her up and check for leaks. So let's do that right now. Right now, we're filling up the overflow bottle and the radiator, and we're trying to do this in parallel, knowing that the radiator will, in fact, pull some of this in as it heats up and cools down the first few cycles. So wrapping things up here, we have everything back together like it was beforehand. We have the radiator full. You can see the overflow bottle is a little over full, but once the engine heats up, it hasn't quite heated up yet, but once it heats up, it'll start drawing that coolant back in. That's why we did that. Looking at the radiator fans, let me kick on the AC and I'll show you the fans. You just want to make sure that these work, and in our case, they both turn on, no problems. Overall, really easy job to do. It's always that one little thing like those grungy bolts or that grungy clamp on the lower radiator hose, but you can do it yourself. This wasn't that hard, I would say, on a scale of 1 to 5. It was probably 1.5 or 2, but not too bad overall. DIY it and save. Don't go to the dealer and spend hundreds of dollars. You can do this yourself. And definitely check out Everride if you're in the greater Roanoke area. We'll leave their website on the screen here. But with that, if you like classic cars, if you like muscle cars, if you like fixing your own stuff and keeping it certified fresh, Fresh Vintage is your channel. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.